It is a very special project for me. It's partly because it's a fragile building, which is sort of beautiful in its own way and definitely at risk. You know, I mean, water's pouring in, bits are falling off. It's seriously at risk. If something isn't done, it won't survive. The relationship between those studios and the beach is really breathtaking. Porthmeor is like that. You walk through a little door on the street, and then you find yourself out in this big room with a huge window onto the beach. And the relationship between those studios and the beach, and the way that thing sits on the beach, it is like a stranded whale. It does feel very special to that location. It's kind of tenuous, you know, it's kind of hanging on by its fingernails, which is one of the things that's attractive about it, I think. The simple answer is that it'll fall down if nobody does anything. It's literally in such bad condition that, you know, the water's pouring in, and water pouring into a building very quickly causes so much damage that it's not retrievable. And the last thing anybody wants is for that to happen, because what'll happen if that building becomes a dangerous structure, for instance, is that it'll be closed down and somebody will come along and build a block of luxury flats on that site, and I think that would really be tragic. Okay, well, that's the photograph of the existing building. And it's quite difficult to understand this building because the road level's way up here somewhere in behind. You can see the fishermen's cellars are behind the stone wall. And then up above are the studios, and there are two stories of them, both here and here. And then a single story of studios across there. The changes that we're proposing is to add a third upper level studio above this one, and then to also add one studio at this end, and that upper studio would be at the same level as the present painting school studio, so they'd have two studios at that floor level. What we think is that the character of the building stays very much the same. It's still this landscape of lumps of building with roofs in between, and it would all be covered in Delabole slate. And I think its personality would stay very similar, even though we've added space. Well, certainly if you're there in a storm, you know it has a direct connection with nature because it's quivering, literally. And that's both, you know, something it has to be protected a bit from that, but it's also very exciting. And I think all the painters, you know, I think the adrenaline of that exposure to the Atlantic and to everything it can throw at them actually is quite an important part of the excitement of being in those studios. That it can go from, you know, if you're in the middle of a town, you don't really feel changes in weather all that much. But boy, you sure do at Porthmeor. If the wind direction changes, or the wind comes up, or it gets suddenly colder or darker, you immediately feel it in those studios. They kind of breathe in and out with the kind of light that comes in. So you're absolutely part of the natural environment there, and very aware of changes in season, changes in clouds going over, changes in temperature, changes in wind direction. I think that's one of the things that's really exciting about it.
She's listened to all of us. She's come in and talked individually to all of us. And that's made a huge difference, that somebody isn't deciding the future of these studios, which is not to do with us, but to do with artists in 100 years' time. You know, it needs to be handled sensitively, and I think she's going to do that. Without a place like this in St Ives, where fishermen are working and the artists are working together, in a building that's the outside of which hasn't changed since the 18-somethings. It's a rare thing, and I think it's unique nationally. I think the exciting thing is that it's not going to be preserved, it's going to be improved, it's going to be kept alive, and that really needs doing. It'd be so short-sighted to let it fall into the sea.